Hi there, friends. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Happy Starry Wisdom Sunday. And starting a little late for those of you on the live stream. Thanks for being patient. It's just a little bit of a rough morning and felt like doing this live stream with food in my belly and not starving, hungry and hangry and all those things. So welcome. It is Ask LmL About Your Theories 5, which means you guys are in control. I've already got a few PayPals and I got a few Patreon questions, of course, to go at. But you guys in the chat, of course, showing up live, really appreciate you. And you have your chance to get all your theories and questions heard. You can ask me about any theory you want today. Oh, yeah, anything at all. And there's two ways to do it to get your questions bumped up to the top. PayPal.me, Mythical Astronomy, of course, is always the best way to donate. You can also use the super chat function inside of YouTube. Either one is appreciated. You guys are well appreciated. Thank you. And let me pull up my PayPals here. Got a couple that came in this morning, and I even got a couple from last week that I'm going to have to dig down and find as well. So thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate that. Pull out the Patreon as well. Wait for that caffeine to kick in. Thank you, guys, who came out to the Friday night stream. It was awesome. Mountain versus the Viper, taking a second bite at the apple, of course. I covered that one in Bloodstone Compendium 4, but we revisited the whole chapter on Friday. It was awesome. All the symbolism. We talked about puppets and fisting, smoking fists rising in the air. It's symbolism. Yeah. So did have a great stream. And if you haven't seen that one, definitely go back and check that out. Those reread streams, if you're not tuning in for those, you're definitely missing out. That's been a sweet outlet. It's really fun, you guys. I mean, I try to, when I do theories, I jump around all these different chapters, but doing the chapter rereads, it's kind of just like riding shotgun on my shoulder. And it's really fun to see the ideas develop line by line throughout the chapter. You can see the same symbolic motif, the mushroom cloud, repeated over and over and over. So yeah, you did. You missed the fisting. Yeah, see the mushroom cloud of smoke rising from the meteor impact is also like a rising fist. And so it ties into the Fist of the First Men and Storm's End, which blots out the stars and looks like an armored fist. Gregor's fist punching up to break the face of the sun character Oberyn Martell, smoking in the dawn light as it does so. So if you missed that, check out the Mountain and the Viper stream. And I hope you've watched the Lightbringer videos. I'm hard at work on a new Melisandre video, blah, 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 blah. Let's get to the theories. Adam McDaniels. Adam Jin Rakai, I should say. First deals, okay, got two of them. So what do you think House, I keep getting this, what do you think House Dayne's words are? I keep wondering if Dawn wasn't a dragon. I'm sure there's a ton of song references, Grateful Dead references. So he's proposing Riders of the Dawn. That's not a bad one. Dawn Tamers, probably not. But let's see. I like Riders on the Dawn. That's pretty good. I don't know. That's probably not it though, because George, it seems like it's going to give away too much. So it should be something that is fairly expositional. Like we have Lightbringer, bitch. that's my current theory on that one. So the next question is, maybe there are two long nights. Yeah, that's been proposed many times, of course, or that it's a cyclical thing that happens every so often. But Adam is proposing that perhaps there was one that forced a mass migration west and the building of the 5 forts, and then one that caused the Hammer of the Waters. So I don't tend to think there were two, because the Long Night is, again, it's such an important event. It's a global event. Everyone witnessed it. And if there were two of them, there would have been record of 2, I think. Now, previous meteor impacts are possible because, if the Great Empire of the Dawn emperors had those pale fire swords, well, where did those come from? The first god emperor was said to come down from the stars and then go back up to the stars when he dies. So there's a very astrological sort of vibe to the Great Empire of the Dawn. Also, there's that pearl palanquin that the god emperor rides around in. That might, maybe that's a meteorite or something, but it's just hard to tell. I basically come down to saying on this that maybe there are cycles of long nights, but I don't think it's really going to end up being important. We're not going to need to know about previous cycles. It's really only the last one that matters, and that whose sort of effects we'll have to be dealing with. So that is how I think about that. But certainly it would make sense if there were cyclical long nights. There seems to be more than one comet, obviously. So maybe there... Yeah, I always forget how to say it. Palanquin? I don't... It's a dumb word. I hate it. Anyways. It's a litter. Sedan chair. Anyways. So yeah, multiple long nights could be, but I tend to think it's just the one that's important. Let's see here. Like, for example, in the Wheel of Time, which is coming out next month, Palanquin, like my friend Quinn. Okay, cool. That's how I'll remember it. Palanquin, like Quinn. Palantir. Thanks, Isabel. I am kind of excited for Wheel of Time. I did read the whole series, and although it got a bit long in parts, it's definitely a legendary fantasy series. A lot of great ideas, things I'll remember for the rest of my life, characters and events and stuff. My favorite moment in Wheel of Time was the cleansing of the male half of the true power, of the true source, when they all got on the hill and used the Bowl of Winds and stuff. Also Rand, when he gets the saw lines and he goes super dark and he starts using the true power, and it's all fucking, that's cool. Anyways, Wheel of Time deals with cycles more than A Song of Ice and Fire does. It's dealing more concretely with reincarnation, where we know that characters are being reborn, both enemies and heroes, and that there are these cycles. Everyone, the learned people in the story, the magicians, they know about these cycles and talk about them. Song of Ice and Fire, I think, is mostly just dealing with this one long night and everything that's happened since then. Although I will say I have started listening to Lords of Light, Roger Zelazny, on audiobook, because that's how I do my reading. And when Quinn has me as a guest, we should call it a pal and Quinn. Very nice, Haranged Mind. So Zelazny, Lords of Light, it's a big influence on A Song of Ice and Fire. Everyone has said so. George has said so. Right up there with Moorcock and Elric, Marvel Comics, and Lord of the Rings. It's really interesting. I'm about an hour and a half into it, and it does a lot of reincarnation stuff. Some of the main characters are Hindu deities that have been reincarnated, or in some cases ripped out of the heavenly Oort cloud and stuffed back into a body. So it's pretty crazy. Definitely can see a lot of the poetic descriptions and mythical astronomy stuff going on in Lords of Light. So I will have a report on that for you sometime soon, for sure. I recommend reading it already. It's a very thought-provoking right out of the gates. So yeah, I don't, like I was saying, not as much dealing with cycles and reincarnation in A Song of Ice and Fire, I don't think. Putterwedge Ironwood sent in a PayPal. Thank you. In the chapter where Brienne passes the Castle Hollard of Dantos Hollard on the way to Cracklaw Point, Castle Hollard has a lot of parallels with Moat Cailin. Here's the quote. An hour farther north, the road divided at a pair of tumbled stones that marked the ruins of a small castle. The right-hand fork followed the coast, meandering up along the shore towards Cracklaw Point. Bogs, etc. The rain was falling more heavily by then. Oh, this is long. Let's see. Oh, I see the line you're talking about. The course of the castle walls could still be discerned amongst the brambles, weeds, and wild elms, but the stones that had made them were strewn like a child's blocks between the roads. Parts of the main keep still stood, however. Its triple towers were gray granite like broken walls, but the merlons were yellow sandstone. 3 crowns, she realized. 3 golden crowns. Okay, yeah, so Moat Cailin has 3 towers. That same description of children's blocks strewn about the road is used. Yeah, and that's what you're keying on. And then see, House Hollard's demise was because of their service to House Darklyn, who imprisoned Aerys. So the question is, do the Darklyns parallel Night's King and the Night Fort? They had the most members given over the Kingsguard, who parallel the others. Would Moat Cailin have belonged to a servant house of Night's King? So Moat Cailin is interesting. Let me back up there. Moat Cailin could absolutely be an important location for long night events. Like, we wonder about the Night's Watch having existed before they got repurposed to fight the others. Maybe they were a previous fighting force. The original oath says, I'm the watcher on the walls, plural, whereas the wall is singular. So maybe originally those vows date back to a time when they guarded walls, plural. Either the Five Forts, maybe some people like to say, or Moat Cailin. It's just hard to say. Moat Cailin is so mysterious. You know, it is symbolically parallel to a lot of the other black evil castles, like the Night Fort or Dragonstone. That is definitely true. So with the Hollards, we got 3 golden crowns. That reminds me of the 3-head has the dragon. There's usually 3 moon meteor symbols when the moon breaks apart. So maybe that's what that's about. Oh, okay. So here's the interesting thing about the Darklyns. Their whole house was extinguished except for Dantos, right? So maybe Dantos is like your stolen other baby, right? Because we have that pattern with the others where, like Ned, for example, he goes to the Tower of Joy. He kills all the symbolic others of the Kingsguard. Night's Queen character Lyanna dies, but Ned takes home the baby. Same thing. The Night's Watch brothers kill Craster and turn the keep upside down, but Sam escapes with the baby. So that's happened a bunch of times. So that's what I would probably say is going on there. Is that would be a Night Fort place, and Dantos Hollard would be your sort of rescued last hero figure. And then he turns around and tries to rescue Sansa in Sansa's chapter. So that kind of works. Yeah. That was an obscure one, but well spotted. Jordan with a 420. In Brienne's chapter, you read your boy Nimble Dick told a variation of the last hero story in which he slayed a dragon. Well, kind of. Since Brienne represents a last hero figure, my theory is that this story pertains to what she will do to fulfill her last hero destiny. Brienne will slay a dragon, either Fagon or maybe an undead dragon, to become one of maybe a few last hero archetypes by the end of the series. So I've said that Brienne parallels Jon. She's definitely a last hero figure and just a heroic figure, right? She's got the stuff of heroes. She throws herself in harm's way, even against overwhelming odds, in order to defend the innocent or defend the weak. So that she definitely fits as a last hero figure. And let me actually pull up a window real quick here that I need. Good old pop-out chat. It goes longer than the StreamYard chat, so it's a little easier to catch things there. All right. And we've got a super chat from No. Could the first Dayne and Bloodstone Emperor be the same person? Danes have purple eyes. The Bloodstone Emperor was brother to the Amethyst Empress. So there's definitely a blood connection. I like to think of the Danes as Amethyst Empress loyalists, I've joked, because they seem to be showing us, like I said, heroic characters, dawn-bringing characters. We also get the Dark Star characters as well. But I tend to think that House Hightower and Dayne would have fled the evil of the Bloodstone Emperor. And that's why Battle Isle is called Battle Isle at Old Town. I would think that Hightowers and Danes were they were the Dragon Lords who became loyal to Westeros and fought against the Bloodstone Emperor, potentially. I believe that is what was going on. I would also track with the Danes parallel to Numenor, or the Edain, the Dunedain. Actually, most people say Dunedain and Edain, and I've been saying it Dane just to enhance the parallel. But I do think Edain and Dunedain sounds cooler than Dunedain, but whatever. the Dunedain came from Numenor. They were the good folks. They protested the corruption of Ar-Pharazôn and Sauron and fled to Middle-earth to escape that. So that would track with your Hightowers and Danes fleeing from the Bloodstone Emperor's reign of terror. Bloodstone Emperor comes to Westeros. And House Dayne and Hightower probably were already established in Westeros before the Bloodstone Emperor took power. The Great Empire of the Dawn, this is what it looks like to me. The Great Empire of the Dawn is coming to Westeros for a while. They establish the Fewstone Fortress, exchanging magic with the Children of the Forest, perhaps interbreeding with the children or the old ones or the green men or whatever. And then when Bloodstone Emperor takes over and turns out the lights and everything goes evil, well, he's already got this connection to Westeros. See, there's already a Fewstone Fortress there. So then he can go there and do whatever. He may have killed Nissa Nissa there and performed the Long Night ritual on the Isle of Faces. That seems more likely to me than in Asshai. I think the story got back to Asshai because the people involved were from Asshai. But it seems like the major events should happen on Westeros, and I think that is the case. So yeah, obviously the Danes with the purple eyes, the whole point is that they are blood relation to the Amethyst Empress, which means also the Bloodstone Emperor, absolutely. And that's why we get the Dark Star and the evil Azor High types, Vorian Dayne, who's Sword of the Evening and then got sent to the wall. It's kind of like the deal right there. So getting back to the Brienne question, she is heroic. She does parallel Jon. And then we have the story of, we've got two dragon slayers in that story, actually. Clarence Crabb slew a dragon, and so did Galadon of Morn, who's the one that sounds like the Last Hero story. So I have wondered if Dawn might be a dragon killing sword, simply because the black swords supposedly kill the others. And so, maybe the white sword kills a dragon, plus Galadon of Morn. All his symbolism seems to parallel Dawn. Galadon of Morn, Sword of the Morning, right? And so he slew a dragon with the Just Maid. So perhaps Dawn can slay a dragon. We'll see. We'll see. I've been saying that for years, that Dawn might be a dragon killing sword. So keep your eye on that. Parker Tobia, good friend of mine, frequent PayPal contributor. Oh, do you think the Ironborn are members of the Great Empire of the Dawn? Yes, absolutely. Yes. That's the whole point of George leaving those seeds of those clues about there being somebody on the Iron Islands before the Ironborn got there. There's actually two things that point to this. Not only the sea stone chair, that's the obvious one. The sea stone chair is made of oily black stone, so it already suggests a tie to Asshai and the Far East. We find the most oily black stone at Asshai and Yin. So then we got the sea stone chair, right? So they found the sea stone chair it's referenced multiple times how they found it on the shores of Old Wick. And they moved it to its current location at Castle Pike. The thing is, Castle Pike is also said to have been found by the first Ironborn. They didn't build it. They found it there. Not only did they find it there, they found it there already collapsed. The Ironborn don't have a record of, well, there's a mythical reference to a flood, but they don't really have a strong record of when all this land collapse happened. Like, they don't say in the year of the 14th year of King Grey Iron, there was an earthquake and part of our castle collapsed. They found Pike on the Iron Islands the way it is. Also, Pike is built with round towers, and we're told that the first men and the early Andals didn't build round towers. They didn't know how to. They only built the square towers and triangular ones, which are easier, and the very primitive ring forts. So I'm not sure how accurate that is. That's a maesterly conclusion. It seems to be mostly accurate. That it was only more recently that they got the round tower design. Later in the Andal presence in Westeros, But then Castle Pike, it's made with round towers. It's found there by the Ironborn, and most of the castle's gone. So it was built before this great land collapse at the Iron Islands. Some of the land collapsed, and now we've only got little bits of the castle left. Most of the curtain wall is gone. We lost most of the castle, basically. It's only like a little half crescent that's left. Yes, Storm's End is round, yes. And this is why the Maesters are very confused about who built Storm's End. Supposedly it's very old, but that's where they point out. They say, well, round tower is that's a recent design, so this castle must be an Andal castle. But we know that Storm's End, their walls were set with spells. So likely Storm's End is very old. It is probably a long night structure, either just post long night or pre-long night. So what we're left with is the idea that there was somebody that was building more advanced structures in Westeros before the first men and Andals. Somebody with better technology. We've got Moat Cailin built with stones the size of a cottage, definitely beyond the first men's capabilities. And the first men didn't build anything like Moat Cailin anywhere else. So Moat Cailin is unique and weird. Also built in the swamp, which means it was probably built before the neck was flooded and turned into a swamp, because it's very hard to build a castle in a swamp, as we learned in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So Moat Cailin is weird. That wasn't built by the first men, and it's very old. Castle Pike is weird. It wasn't built by the first men. At least nobody remembers building it. They remember finding it. And it has round towers. And it was built before whatever land collapse happened there. So those two things seem to connect, right? Whatever collapsed the land at the Iron Islands is probably what flooded the neck. And this is undoubtedly the Long Night disaster here. So that means that Moat Cailin and Pike predate that disaster and thus predate the Long Night. So then you have the Fewstone Fortress. That's another anomalous building. We know the Great Empire of the Dawn built that one. So I suspect that the Great Empire of the Dawn, essentially, they are the ones who brought the advanced engineering skill to Westeros, which we find little traces of here and there. We find it, like I said, with Pike, with potentially the wall. You know, if there's some fused stone structure under the wall, potentially Storm's End, and maybe Moat Cailin. But Moat Cailin is so weird, it's hard to explain. So that's kind of its own little mystery. So yes, the Ironborn, and then of course the Ironborn also have legends of some people coming from across the sea, the Sunset Sea maybe. So this brings back the idea that maybe the Great Empire of the Dawn sailed the other way, going east from Ashai and then hitting Westeros on the west coast. And that's why they land at Starfall, Old Town, the Iron Islands, and Casterly Rock, because Lan the Clever is probably a Great Empire of the Dawn too. He's got gold hair, and he steals fire from the sun to color his hair, which is trademark Azor Ahai, stealing the fire of the gods language. And he is a foreigner of mysterious origin with gold hair who comes to Casterly Rock and takes over from the Casterlys, who were first men. So that's Great Empire of the Dawn too. It's got to be. So Lannisters, Ironborn, Danes, Hightowers, all from the Great Empire of the Dawn. And as you can see, the Great Empire of the Dawn, like I always say, multi-ethnic empire. It encompassed too many different peoples, many of whom are not light-skinned. And then we see the fair Valyrians and Danes. So we know some of those people had darker skin tones. And in Dany's vision, they have all different color eyes. Their hair is silver, gold, and platinum white. That's the standard Valyrian Dragonlord hair. But we know that hair comes out different ways. Sometimes it's more white, sometimes more silver, sometimes more gold. So Lan the Clever, gold hair, and the Lannisters always have, their eyes are always compared to jade too, and wildfire. So they seem very luminous, and they could match, the jade eyes of the Jade Emperor. So there you go. So there's a 2-for-1. Ironborn, yes, and Lannisters. I don't think the Lannisters were banned from getting their hands on Valyrian steel. That is not quite right. They just had trouble buying one because nobody wanted to give up their sword, I think, is what's going on. And it just built up to the point where they were so determined that they paid a high amount for it. But I did talk about all that in my The Doom Was an Inside Job video, so check that out. Parker says, I swear to God, if Jon isn't a Targ, I'm going to freak out. Is he the king? So don't worry. You don't have to freak out. Oh, freak out. Looking at you, Cleo. Jon's definitely a Targ. RLJ, settled law. Absolutely. I was already convinced before the show did the reveal. I don't think the show is going to do a different RLJ answer than the books, especially when that's well known as the story how George tested their knowledge is to ask them about RLJ. Jon's mother, they gave the correct answer. So no, I think people holding out against RLJ are conspiracy theorists at this point. And it's and contrarians, and I love y'all, but RLJ is 100% happening. Absolutely. You can take all those other theories and put them in the grave. They never really worked anyway, and it just doesn't work. So, and people that think that RLJ is too obvious are forgetting that these books are 10 years apart, and we've just had way too much time to stare at all this. RLJ is not obvious. A lot of people don't get it on the first read. I didn't get it on the first read. So yeah, no, they shouldn't watch Order of the Green Hands N plus A equals J video. I don't think that is worth the time, actually. No, that's my opinion. I mean, you can if you want, but let's see here. Because it just doesn't make sense. Nothing but RLJ makes sense, and RLJ makes a ton of sense from a narrative plot point of view. Also makes sense from the symbolism point of view. Also makes sense from like the clues and mechanics. You can basically prove it just with the information in a Game of Thrones. So that's what I have to say about that. So don't worry. Now, as far as what was the second part of what you said? Scrolling back up. Sorry. Jon being king. Well, we know that King Bran was something that they got from George. The showrunners came out and they acknowledged a couple things and said, this we got from George. That was one of the oh shit moments. And then this we came up with. So, for example, King Bran they got from George and they were surprised about it. And I made a whole video explaining how that's going to make way more sense in the books than it did on the show, because it has all this stuff to do with green seer kings and symbolic summer kings and all this stuff. Bran will be a summer king, reprising the original role that Robert played when he came to the throne as a summer king. So we've gone through the whole seasons. We've had a winter king, etc. Jon will be, I believe he will be king of winter for a time. Okay. Similar to what happened in the show. It could just be that that's the title he'll wear to lead the fight against the others. But he has all the King of Winter symbolism. The King of Winter folklore is a branch of Green Man folklore. And the entire Stark house is based on this King of Winter idea. The King of Winter specifically, it's like a wicker man, and he's made of dead shoots and basically leavings from the harvest. You make him in the fall, you make him into a little man, you keep him around all winter, and then at Beltane in the spring, you burn him. That brings in the spring. So the King of Winter is a dead green man who lives through the winter and then gets set on fire to bring the spring. And that's literally Jon. He's a dead skin changer. All the Night's Watchmen have dead green man symbolism, and he's going to become a fire white. So he'll be like a burning straw man. And I talked about that in the Green Zombie series, of course. But so Jon is a symbolic King of Winter. He will play a role of King of Winter, but ultimately we know that Bran is going to be king in some sense. Will there be an Iron Throne? Will it still be the Seven Kingdoms? Hard to say. But Bran is going to be ultimately the king in the story. And I think that makes sense. I think Jon will end up being the new Cold Hands, so to speak, sort of ranging the North in perpetuity. Or perhaps even giving up his life sacrificially, as I believe Dany will, to save the day. And Carsonark's dropping the King Bran series link in the chat there. Thank you. I think that quote from George's wife is taken out of perspective. And also, yeah, I think too much is made of that. All right, so I'm still working through the super chats, guys. I've got several more. I'm not done with those. Let's see. Parker's getting desperate. He's like, do you think we're kind of fucked with one in the next book? Because I need it. I need it too, man. I need it too, man. And yeah, I got the doc up too, Minty. So I'll check that. Yeah. I need it too. All I can say is we're trying to send George the positive energy, trying to send him the creative mojo to help him finish. I got to think it's got to be coming soon. I mean, he's had 10 years to work on it, right? There's nothing really else to say. There's no tea leaves to read. He's just got to do it. I don't think Jon's going to be having any regular babies. I see the question of his potential fertility coming up. I don't think that's going to be a thing. If Jon makes any babies, they're going to be shadow babies with Melisandre. I don't think we're going to have any actual babies. Guys, you might need to prepare yourselves for a Jon and Dany love story without sex. They might both be zombies, or just Jon might be a zombie. That could happen. Because I think a lot of their bonding will be on friendship, family, common values, and things like that. So I don't know that it'll be the steamy boat sex that we got on the show. But also it's possible that Bran could have a hand in Jon's resurrection, and that the hinted at Greenseer resurrection could be better than the fire whiting process. So maybe Jon will be restored more so than Beric or Stoneheart. That is potentially the case. Or maybe Jon will just write zombie sex devoted to Mariah. Maybe we will get that. I have to see if George has the courage to write that. Who is the number one family in the story? Parker asked. Well, that's House Stark. House Stark is the home team. George does love the dragons, clearly, but House Stark definitely feels like the home team to me. At the same time, though, I feel like Dany might be his favorite character. You know, George talks a lot about growing up in New Jersey. He grew up pretty poor, working class neighborhood, but there was this big house that they passed all the time that his family used to own. I think it was like 2 generations back. And I think it maybe got turned into a place of business or something. You know, sometimes those old mansions and houses get turned into factory or something like that. I forget the exact story, but the point is George was inspired by walking by this big house that his family used to own. And he sort of just, that is where the idea of dispossessed heir Dany came from. The idea that, like, well, we used to live in the Red Keep, but now we're beggars and on the run. That is George's childhood story there that he put into Dany's character. So the Starks feel like the home team, but I wouldn't be surprised if he said that Dany was his favorite character. Did it have a red door? Harangan Mind says. It probably did. I'd have to say that it probably did. So Parker's saying Great Empire of the Dawn is the worst form of the Iron Islands. I think you maybe meant the opposite, or the other way around. Did you mean to say that the Iron Islanders would be the worst of the Great Empire of the Dawn? That's potentially true. Let's see here. Have I seen Lan? He's crazy. Parker, are you drunk? You're not sending me too many PayPals because you're like drinking heavily, right? Just want to make sure we're not doing anything irresponsible here. What do you mean, have I seen Lan? Clarify your question for me, Parker. What do you want to hear about Lan the Clever. That's pretty much all I have to say about him. Is he's supposedly a child of Garth, or maybe he stole the inheritance of a child of Garth. That's more like it. And he's said to come from overseas. So I just, the theory had been that he's an Andal, Lan the Andal. But I think he's Great Empire of the Dawn with that golden hair. Everybody's being nice in the chat, right? I'm not sure what you guys are talking about. All right. So let's see here. I'm going to go over to my PayPal. Patreon. Oh, I see. There was a super chat from Harangan. That's what he was talking about, not a PayPal. So if Dawn is sentient-ish, which is a big if, and if Dawn is the original ice, what if Dawn decided to fail Arthur because Ned is its true master? That could explain why it isn't inherited. It truly belongs to the Starks. So I do believe the Danes are stewards of Dawn. Maybe that's the house words, right? But I'm just not sure. The sentient swords is a thing in a lot of the stuff that George is drawing from, but he hasn't really spelled that out. Apart from Lightbringer drinking Nissa's soul, there's not a whole lot suggesting that Valyrian steel is sentient or has the consciousness of the sacrificed people inside of it. Kind of like a Stormbringer or something like that. So I think mostly he's just playing with those ideas in a soft way. But there is a huge mystery at the Tower of Joy. It is a mystery how Arthur Dayne lost with Dawn when he's a great warrior and Dawn is the greatest sword. I still think Howland Reed Blowdart theory makes the most sense. Basically, they're fighting, and then Howland's, just kind of goes right from the swamp, and got the dart in the knee, and then Ned gives him the blow. Something like that. We'll see. Obviously, we know Howland Reed saved him, so it was either magic or, swamp dart. Do you think Jon will cease being a POV character? This is possible, which seems weird. It seems like we need Jon POVs. We need to see him finish his crypt stream. But I think somebody has said that George has said that dead people don't get POVs, and they haven't so far. So I'm not sure how that's going to go. It seems like we have to get Jon POVs, but maybe we'll only see him from the outside for a while until he comes back fully into himself. Like if the others possess his body, I wouldn't expect to get that POV. We should get the wolf dream at least when Jon is inside of Ghost. So the POV should follow his Jon spirit. But that is an open question. Thank you, Palafico3. Appreciate that. And thank you, Oso Isco. I didn't call out your name for that last super chat, but thank you. I can cook a little bit. I don't mind cooking. It's the dishes that are kind of the barrier for me. But pulling up my Patreon, Grey Waste Tim. Without dragons of his own, Fagon will have to rely on symbols of legitimacy, which he does have. Illyrio more than likely will give him the sword Blackfyre, yes. But I think he'll also be presented with gifts from Varys and Doran Martell, possibly the crown of Aegon the Conqueror. The last Targ king to wear that crown was Daron, who died in Dorne. The crown was never recovered, and I believe the Martells have possession of it. That would be cool. That would make a lot of sense. It would make sense for Aegon's crown to surface, and if it was last seen in Dorne, that totally makes sense, because I do believe Fagon will get all those symbols, Blackfyre, and the crown. That would make a lot of sense. That's a good theory, Grey Waste Tim. Approved. Theory approved. And there were some PayPals from earlier in the week. I am still going to go back and get those. So panic not if that's you. Shadow Demon says, More headcanon than theory, since it's very tuned for them. But here goes. Blood sacrifices can also be metaphorical, as in taking someone's ability to pass on their bloodline or to create the metaphorical future to continue their house name. Yeah, no, that's totally true. Okay, so what you're talking about is the idea that people are giving up their fertility in order to gain magic power. So you're pointing out that it might not have been Bran losing his legs, but rather his ability to have children that signified, So I think this is more of a symbolic thing as opposed to a magical mechanics thing. It's an important principle because George wants to talk about parents and children a lot. And in order to raise a child, you have to sacrifice certain elements of yourself, right? And ultimately, the mother is even risking her life to carry the baby to term, especially in the olden days. So you have to be willing. You're putting your life at risk. The woman is, in order to have a kid, right? And that's still true, obviously. And then there's the metaphorical, not metaphorical, but the sort of sacrifice you make as far as choices and providing for the kids and changing your priorities and all that crap. So with the magic users, we see this portrayed on a magic level where some people are willing to, instead of sacrificing their own desires or needs or putting their own life on the line to have a child, they instead sacrifice their heirs, their children, or their fertility to gain magic power. Euron is ready to do that with Philea Flowers' baby. Dany lost Rhaego and then, got the dragons instead. So that was kind of a trade. And yeah, Bran lost his fertility. There's a bunch of other examples. It's sort of an old folkloric magical principle that George is tapping into here. So I don't think it's as much of a mechanics thing, but it's similar to the idea that death pays for life, right? So in this case, it's not your own death, but the death of your child or your potential children. So, but you're totally right as far as picking up on that theme. That's absolutely a thing. He's talking about the Unsullied. So yeah, the others can't have children. And they have magical power. The Unsullied are turned into weapons and their fertility is sacrificed. Let's see. Talking about Rhaego. Yep. Craster sacrificing his sons to get protection from the others. Varys, right? His privates are sacrificed so that the sorcerer can, his naughty bits, so that sorcerer can hear the voice in the flame or whatever. Yeah, so it's basically, it's only death can pay for life. It's cannibalistic. George wants to show you the example of someone who's willing to sacrifice themselves to help others versus people who are willing to prey on others to help themselves. Those are the two opposing ideals, if you will. So guys, I need to take a quick 420 break, but as I did on the last stream, I will share with you a little something to keep you busy in the meantime. It is a mythical astronomy journey, a meditative journey through the universe. And we're back. Oh, wasn't that nice? Meditative visuals, funky music. And by the way, that's me. And it's my cousin, Jamie Bullock on the keyboards. So, yeah. There it is. John Merkel. My theory is that Valyrian steals 1,000 folds. Basically, you're saying that oily black stone is an ingredient in Valyrian steel. You're mentioning that Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper absorb the light. Valyrian steel is dark gray black, and Widow's Wail colors are blood and night. A man after my own heart, John Merkel. So yes, this used to be one of my favorite tin foils. I kind of backed away from it. But, nobody can reproduce Valyrian steel, right? The Cohoric have come the closest. They can rework the steel, and they were caught murdering children, committing blood sacrifice, trying to discover the secret. And we do think, or we're pretty sure, that Valyrian steel involves human sacrifice. And I would go ahead further and say they're probably just copying the Azor Ahai myth. The sword was tempered in the heart of a person. So that's telling you magic swords are made with blood sacrifice. At least some of them are. So I think the Valyrians were just copying that. Now, there's some missing ingredient because nobody can reproduce. It could just be dragonfire. That's, I have to say, the most obvious answer is that the Valyrians had dragons. And that is, you need dragonfire. You just can't do it with regular fire. That could be. However, it could be that the oily black stone is a part as well. Because the Valyrians had that. Well, first of all, because of the symbolic clues. The oily black stone is always described as drinking the light, drinking the daylight. It's magic and it's weird, and it just drinks the light up. It's something that George is fascinated with, that description of drinking the light. Melisandre's ruby drinks the light as well. The Oathkeeper and Widow's Wail definitely do it. And so that has made me wonder if George is trying to tell us that there is oily black stone, meaning moon meteor material, in the black swords. Now, that would, of course, make sense because the meteors are black swords symbolically. And so it's easy to see how that could work. I also noticed, though, that the Valyrians took over Gorgai and renamed it Gogassos. That is in the Basilisk Isles. It is right next to the Isle of Toads. And the Isle of Toads, they've got that 40-foot greasy toadstone statue. That sounds more like a hunk of rock that was carved in situ as opposed to something that was transported there. So seems like a moon meteor landed there. It seems to me what happened, and I don't know if George is really thinking this technically, but I'm picturing a meteor landing and then poisoning the ground and turning the ground to oily black stone. That seems to be what's happening at Asshai. So could be that certain amount of oily black stone was created in Essos as well, or not Essos, in Sothorios, because we see it at Yin and we see it on the Isle of Toads. Point being, the Valyrians had a slave colony right next to the Isle of Toads, and they were practicing their worst magic there. Blood magic, mating humans and animals together with, taking advantage of their slaves to do experiments. So it could be that they were harvesting oily black stone, and that is where they discovered how to make Valyrian steel. But that's way tinfoil, and I hope that was worth your $9.99. Next up is Palafico, who sends a question this time with a super chat. Thank you. I mentioned the shadow references pertaining to the Jungian shadow. Yes, I did. I've always thought that ice was the persona, fire the shadow, green seer is the mana, and the three-eyed raven is the self. Okay, so I am not that well versed in Jungian psychology to follow it that far. To know what exactly is meant by the persona versus the mana. Persona is kind of easy to figure out. I think the others are the shadow, though. And I don't even know if this is something that it needs to track. Like, there's always a self and a shadow with this thing. So, like, the others are white shadows, and they are the main shadow that needs to be reconciled. Parallel is the wildlings. They've been ostracized north of the wall. The Seven Kingdoms just doesn't want to deal with them, and they're denying their humanity, right? So when you reconcile yourself with your shadow, this is the thing I do know from Jungian psychology. It means integrating with the darker sides of you, being fully aware of your entire self, accepting yourself, as opposed to hiding those things that you'd rather not think about or see. And it takes work to sort of drag that out and do that. And this is probably an incomplete, simplified explanation of this, but this is the general concept. So with Westeros, like I said, they need to reconcile themselves with the wildlings. Jon is already doing that. He's bringing the wildlings south of the wall, pointing out that they're humans too. And then with the others, ultimately, they've been exorcised from the weirwood trees. That's my theory, at least. Check out the Weirwalkers video. They seem to be exiled tree spirits. They're pissed off. They lost their tree homes. So they need to be reconciled back into the weirwood net and into the weirwoods, essentially. Jon is going to do it. Ghost is his white shadow. Jon is literally going to integrate with his shadow by merging with Ghost inside the wolf and then going back over to his man self. So yeah, the deeper theme here is personality integration. But I don't know if that tracks to say that, well, fire is the persona and ice is the shadow. I think it's probably going to be different for every little setup. And George likes to flip-flop all the symbolism anyways. Like Melisandre parallels Night's Queen, but she's the fire version of Night's Queen, right? So there's all that kind of inverted parallel action going on. But I'm curious about the Green Seers being the mana. Is the mana like the mojo that you use to reconcile things? Because that could be the role for the Green Seers, obviously. Yeah. Maybe you can kick that around in the chat, or you can expound on that in the comments, Palafico, and school me up a little bit. In fact, please do. Ivan Torres, thank you for making these Ask Your Theories streams. Love hearing all the theories and your analysis. It is really fun. It's exciting. After these streams are over, I go back and listen through and jot down in the notes all the theories that we discussed. And I'm always surprised by like how many theories we actually chew through in 2 hours. So if it was the oily stone, the Valyrians would have mined it all up, possibly. But maybe you only need a little bit of it. And also maybe it's like hard to work with. It could be a reason. Maybe there used to be a lot more of it. We don't even know what was in Valyria. Maybe there was some there in Valyria. Perhaps they carved the toad idol. They carved all the stone off of it, and what was left kind of looked like a toad. And that's when the people that were remaining, the weird fish people, made it into a toad. Like, who knows? Why don't people ever write fanfic about that? Give me the origin of the Toad Isle statue, not more ships that will never happen. Although everyone should do whatever makes them happy, of course. I'm just checking out the 46 and 2, of course. I was thinking about that Tool song, 46 and 2. My shadow changes come. All right, I'm not going to sing Tool. But yes, those lyrics that's exactly what that's about. So what was the other culture like before Azor High invaded? Well, my theory is that what became the others were the dead green men that were inside the weirwood net. So they were in a state of tree zenness when they were ripped out. That is what I believe is going on. And again, you can check that out in the Weirwalkers video. One of my finest works that I'm the most proud of, I have to say. I almost made that script so many times. The others Weirwoods connection. I always held off. I went other directions, and I finally paid all my attention to it. And I just think I did a good job on that one. So check that out. If you haven't seen that, it's one of the top videos to watch on my channel. That is what I'm trying to say. Illyrio Blackfyre plus Sarah Brightflame. Is that Fagon? So the Blackfyres died off in the male line. So Sarah should be the Blackfyre, I think, is how the theory goes, right? Or would it be Illyrio's mom? I guess. The bright flame theory, for those of you who don't know, well, let's back up. So, first of all, strong clues that Fagon is a Blackfyre and that this is another Blackfyre rebellion coming back around. It's super weird how Illyrio's like, oh, yes, the Blackfyres, that died out in the male line. Like, why would you say that, right? So that's definitely a clue. Well, the female line didn't die out. And if George is telling us that the line didn't die out, what's the point of that? There's more clues than that, but that's where it begins. Now, the Bright Flame part of it is talking about Aerion Bright Flame, who we see in the Duncan Egg story. He went over to Essos, and I think did he die there? Or he spent a lot of time there, potentially had some kids there. I'm a little fuzzy on this theory. But yeah, the idea is that Sarah, whose grayscale stone hands Illyrio still has, I thought she was the Blackfyre, but that theory is definitely out there to read up on and get the specifics of it. I know that when I read it, I was like, oh yes, this makes sense. Definitely a Blackfyre. And even the Bright Flame part of it kind of made sense, although it's a little more sketch, I would say. Yeah, who is Septa Lemore? That's a great friggin' question. There's an obscure character called Wenda the White Fawn from the Kingswood Brotherhood. And there are some clues that that's who it is, but it's so obscure, I don't know what the point is, really. So, yeah, I don't know. She doesn't seem like she's a Shara Dayne, which is who everyone wants her to be. It's who I would want her to be, because Shara Dayne has purple eyes, and Tyrion would have noticed that. I just don't see any way George can just have Tyrion not comment on the fact that she has purple eyes if she has purple eyes. So that's my problem with that. We're all Septa Lemore. Yeah, maybe so. I mean, I would love her to be a Shara Dayne, but again, Tyrion looks at her way too much, and they're in close quarters, and it's like, how would you not note the purple eyes? Because he's even thinking about Fagon and Targaryen lineage and all that stuff. So I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a glamour, but I don't really see any evidence of a glamour. And yes, not everyone needs to have a secret identity. The thing is, Lemore, it's very much hinted that she does have a secret identity. Although I definitely agree with you, Michael. In general, you know, Mance is just Mance, and kiss is just a kiss. Let's see. What makes the grass move in Dany's last chapter? Well, first it's Drogon, and then it's the Dothraki rider, if I recall. But Quaithe is also talking to her there. So that's probably the most important thing. If there's another presence in that chapter, it's definitely Quaithe. So she hears Jorah and Viserys' voices from the grass, right? The grass is swaying in the breeze, and it's that rustling sound that acts as a medium to channel the whatever voices she's hearing. But after that, she hears Quaithe's voice, and she, you know, saying, "Oh, to go forward, you must go back." Blah blah blah. And then she looks up at the stars and sees that Quaithe's mask is made of the starlight. So Quaithe's face is in the sky, formed of stars, dispensing starry wisdom. That's the point of that. It's like the big clue that Quaithe is Starry Wisdom Church, because she's literally dispensing wisdom through the stars. It's very literal. So we're left with two choices for the voice of Viserys and Jorah. Either these really are just Dany's subconscious, you know, just like you have in a dream, and you dream of somebody and they say to you what you imagine they might say to you. That seems to be what happened, because Viserys is like pointing the finger at Dany, making her feel guilty. So that could be Dany's guilt. But as it goes on, Jorah starts talking, and they're talking about the dragons. Viserys is like, oh, if I had dragons, I would have taught the world the meaning of our words. And Jorah is talking about the dragons. And then Quaithe comes on the strongest at the end, talking about embracing the dragon nature. So could be that Quaithe is implanting the whole thing. We know that Quaithe can give Dany waking dreams. She doesn't have to be sleeping. Quaithe does this via astral projection in the glass candle when Dany's on top of the pyramid in Meereen. She has a waking dream from Quaithe. So that's probably what's happening there as well. Although it's always impossible to tell with somebody's dreams that are being tampered with by either Bloodraven or Quaithe, how much is their regular dream and how much is the implanter, messing with things. So if the voice is not actually Jorah, why would it really be Quaithe? Because Quaithe is the one talking to her at the end of that sequence. So it's logical to wonder if the previous voices were also from Quaithe. They seem to be sending the same message. They're trying to convince Dany to embrace her dragon nature. That could be the whole point of the whole thing. Quaithe might imagine that creating the image of Viserys and Jorah is a better way to persuade Dany, because I think that's what Quaithe is trying to do. So, guys, let me grab Cleo real quick. I've left her in the room for long enough. She's having a cow. Oh, sorry, I didn't play the music this time. All right. Wait, what did you miss? You didn't miss anything. I just went and got Cleo because I was tired of listening to her. Aw, freak out. Oh, there's a wedding? All right, sorry. Well, I won't delve too deeply into the chats. Rumor mongering there. So we've got Sir Pounce the Third on Patreon. What do you think about the theory that Tormund Giantsbane is a descendant of House Plum? It sounds far-fetched, but the evidence is really long. Well, I've never heard of that theory, and I'm not sure what the evidence is. House Plum. How does that relate to the wildlings? I know one of the Plums went over and was in the Golden Company. Sir Pounce, I'm going to have to take a pass on that one, buddy. You got to... Yeah, I haven't heard that theory, so I would need a little more information on that. So one of the it's not an Azor High myth, it's a long night myth, really, is that there's a Rhoynish hero who sung a song to end the long night. Could Jon play a song of ice and fire on Rhaegar's harp to drive away the White Walkers? Bring, bring. Probably not. Probably not. I don't know if Rhaegar's harp is down in the crypts. That'd be cool. But yeah, obviously this is a little bit of a fun question. I think the reason why George is using song language here is because the key with song is a harmonization. We were just talking about integrating with your shadow and how the others have to be accounted for and integrated and all that stuff. That's the point of a song. A song, you have two or more instruments or voices harmonizing to create music. And then we also see song used for battle, which the Vikings loved to use, the historical Vikings, not the Minnesota Vikings who lost today. The historical Vikings use the word song for battle, which George uses all over the place, a song of swords. Jamie thinks about it a lot, quite frankly. And then when Jamie and Brienne fight, you can see that it's actually like flirting. So George uses I've actually had a section in my very first essay called Sex and Swordplay, where I outlined how swordplay and sex is used, in parallel to each other. That's the same thing I'm talking about here. The song is a battle. The song is a harmonization. And the harmonization side can also be, like I said, a pair of lovers harmonizing, making a child. The child being like the song, the new thing that's born from the two things. Like two voices combine, the new thing is born as the song. So the song is a symbol of the harmonization. Child is a symbol of the union of the parents. And the fight itself can only happen when the two contestants want to match. That's the thing. It's like they're fighting, but they're not really fighting. They're actually collaborating to create something, which is the Song of Swords. Oh, it's 4:20. Look at that. I just played the hold music, but I realized there was a cool dragon fight picture that I didn't show on the Dragon Fights stream, and I wanted to go back and get it. So I will give you a little bit of art to look at. Dance of the Dragons by Rudin Devela, or Devela, whichever it is. And this is Daemon and Caraxes with Harrenhal below. And let me go ahead and share this and take the comment down. Are you happy now, girl? Are you happy? Okay, yes. There you go. Ruben Devella, Daemon Targaryen on Caraxes. 30 seconds. Ah, and a lovely piece of art it is. Yes. So there we go. And of course, if you missed the Dragon Dances live stream last Wednesday, that was 3.5 hours of me breaking down every dragon fight in Fire and Blood, plus the storming of the dragon pit. It was 3.5 hours of very dense symbolism. So there you go. That was the one piece of art that I forgot to show off. And we're back. Hi, good girl. So once again, it's Ruben, Ruben, Devela, Devela. Ruben Devela, Daemon Targaryen on Caraxes, if you want to look for that art. There you go. So Genty M on Patreon, longtime patron, says, I've noticed that there seems to be a touch of Sigyn, wife of Loki, symbolism hanging over Catelyn that weirdly complements Littlefinger's Loki symbolism. That kind of makes sense, yeah. By the way, there's some gruesome details in this myth. Sigyn had 2 sons by Loki, Narfi and Vali. When Loki is captured by the gods after Baldur's murder, they bring in these sons too. Vali is transformed into a feral wolf who tears his brother apart before running off howling to Jotunheim. Narfi's entrails are then used to bind Loki in his prison. All this while Sigyn watches, weeping for her sons and husband. Then she dutifully stays by her husband to shelter him from the snake's painful venom as best she can. The parallels I see here are Littlefinger creating the chaos, but Cat and her family paying the painful price for it. Yeah, that makes total sense. Rob is the dismembered Narfi and Arya the feral Vali who flees to cold Bravos. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Cat becomes mostly silent after this with permanent tears, represented by her scars. That's correct. Also, Littlefinger's old sigil, the Titan of Bravos, is kind of comparable to a frost giant from Jotunheim, which is what Loki is. Totally. That's 100%. And Cat faithfully believing his lies without questioning paved the road to the Stark and Tully's ruin. Yeah, no, I think you nailed that. Littlefinger is the most obvious Loki character around for sure. And I do think he has the ice giant symbolism because the Titan of Braavos is a giant, but now Littlefinger lives on top of an icy mountain. So it's great. And yeah, so well done, Jinty M, student of Norse mythology. I salute you. You should be in the chat, right? Jinty M's in the chat, isn't she? Is it possible that Robb is actually Brandon's son, which is why Kat is so hateful towards Jon, who she thinks of? No, I don't think so. First of all, I don't think Kat is hateful towards Jon. I think that's greatly over-exaggerated. Kat is understandably bitter about Ned bringing home his bastard like that. I mean, that's in the politics of that day that she's understandably pissed about that. And she's also smart to point to the precedent of the Blackfyres and all the trouble that can have when you have an older, bastard child. So I don't think there's any particular, I don't think it's overly malicious. I think it's just part of the situation. It's hard on everybody. It's a little awkward. I think that's how it's meant to be portrayed. It was overplayed in the show, and then and there's all this weird Catelyn hate on the internet, which I really don't care for either. So that's my statement on that. But I don't know. Robb is not Brandon's son. They never had a chance to consummate that, I don't think. And I don't see any clues about that. I also don't see what the point would be. Robb's already dead. Cat's dead. We're not going to find out about that. So no, I don't think so. The Nomad. Any idea or theories on what happened to the dragon rider who took off with one of the Targaryen dragons and the princess and a queen? Well, if you're talking about Nettles and Sheepstealer, there is an answer to that. She became the Fire Witch of the Burned Men. And let me see if I can find this quote. Good girl. Yes. Oh, man, how long has this been going on? Brutal. 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 That was an epic one. That was one where I tried to unclick and it didn't unclick. I'm so sorry, guys. And the other chat window was covered up. I didn't see it since I started the answer. Brutal. Okay. David, it's a long-ass mute, LmL. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm really tired. I haven't slept much. Oh, Lord. Okay, so look. The question was about Nettles, I believe. Nettles and Sheepstealer. And I've got a great answer for you. So I'm sorry. I was getting really into it. It was a good answer. No, I got it for you. So check this out. In the Dance of the Dragons, when Nettles left Daemon Targaryen. She flew off on Sheepstealer, never to be seen again. Who knows what happened? Okay. In the world of Ice and Fire, we're given the answer, and here it is. Most of these clan names, and this is about the Mountains of the Moon and the mountain clans, most of these clan names have some meaning, however obscure those meanings might be to us. The Black Ears take the ears of men they defeat in battles as trophies, we know. Amongst the burned men, a youth might give some part of his body to the fire to prove his courage before he can be deemed a man. This practice might have originated in the years after the Dance of the Dragons, some maesters believe, when an offshoot clan of the Painted Dogs were said to have worshipped a fire witch in the mountains, sending their boys to bring her gifts and risk the flames of the dragon she commanded to prove their manhood. So Nettles became a god queen with a dragon god queen to the wildlings in the Mountains of the Moon, which is kind of awesome. That's what I was getting fired up about. I was like, that's friggin' cool, right? That is awesome. Yeah, no, usually I can tell when it's muted because I have the two chat windows up and I can see everybody screaming. The chat starts moving really quick because everyone's like muted, muted, muted. But I had two windows up and it covered it up. And yeah, sorry guys. Anyways. So there's your answer. Sheepstealer and Nettles set themselves up as head fire witch and started a new clan called the Burned Men. And then Timett, son of Timett, of course, is got a lot of symbolism that's parallel to Beric and Bloodraven. He's got one eye missing. He's got the flaming red hair. He's a burned man, obviously. He lives in the moon, Mountains of the Moon. So, yeah. Seems like the wrong mic is on. I don't think so. Let me just double check. Oh, it did. Thank you. That happened. Did that just happen? Did the audio just change, or was it like crappy the whole time? I was certain I selected the right mic earlier. Did that just happen? Please tell me it just happened. I spend so much time spending money on equipment, and then ever since I unmuted. Okay. So something did happen. That wasn't my fault. I don't think I muted myself. I think the cable must have I must have jostled the cable and caused it to mute and unplug or something. Okay, cool. All right. I think I could edit all this out on YouTube actually after the fact. But yeah. Thanks for letting me know. So that's the Nettles question. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but certainly a great question and a fun answer. Yeah, there's a weird pop sound and then it went mute. Okay, so there, yeah. All right, thanks for clearing that up. Mystery resolved. Let me check on my Minty document to make sure I didn't miss anything. Shadow Demon with a super chat that I missed. Thanks for the discussion. Your appreciation is appreciated. Oh, did I say he? Sorry. Shadow Demon is a female. A female Shadow Demon. Ah, excellent. Cool. I need to get you a full patron name. Oh, you just signed up. That's why. Okay, cool. You just signed up this month. Well, welcome to Patreon, Shadow Demon. I'll give you some sort of Melisandre Shadow Baby related name just in time for the new Melisandre video. That will work out great. And by the way, guys, I finished recording the first Melisandre video. I finished editing the raw video. I'm now adding the pictures. It's going to be about 35 minutes. And so I will have that out for you in maybe a week. Yeah, trying to keep it moving here. Name change, I explained that in the last couple streams, and I'm going to explain it on the Melisandre video too. So I'll skip that for now. But I'm David Lightbringer, and you can still call me LmL. That's the short answer. Swagger Dagger. Well, you've already got a cool nickname, and you're a mod now. I'm also going to activate the subscriptions thing on YouTube that will allow you guys to get badges and cool icons and stuff. I was eligible to do that at 30,000 subs and have just been, I put it in the ADHD hole and just haven't gotten to it. So Try to get that going. Cold Hands question. What's up with Cold Hands? Why is he the only Ice White that isn't controlled by the others? Who is he truly? So check out my Cold Hands stream. You can find that in the playlist called Mythical Character Studies. I went pretty far into it, but the short answer is that he is an undead skin changer. Mike Hall, no, I wasn't. I'll come back to Cold Hands in a second. Does the new Mel video talk about the Morrigan? Not as of now. I was thinking about researching that and maybe adding something in, because when you look for Melisandre artwork, you stumble upon Morrigan artwork, and it's pretty obvious there's a parallel there. So I'm going to do a bit of research, and maybe if it doesn't make it in one of the videos, I'll cover it in the live stream or something. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. So Cold Hands, I believe that Cold Hands is two things. One, he's a skin changer who became a white, which is exactly what Jon is. He's a skin changer that's going to become a white. That's important because the animal acts as a soul jar when a skin changer dies. When Beric dies, his spirit just starts to dissolve or go into the ether or whatever. And we see that Stoneheart brought back 3 days after she died. There's a lot less of her that comes back, right? And Beric loses something every time he comes back. So there is a loss of identity and self that happens with a normal fire whiting process. However, I believe that when you have with Jon, his spirit is going to be going into his wolf. That's a different thing. And if we get it out of the wolf in time, his sense of self should be better preserved, albeit possibly merged with his wolf. So I think that Cold Hand shows all the evidence of being a skin changer because he rides a great elk. You can't ride great elk. They're untamable beasts for the most part, although there are some Eskimo tribes, I think, maybe that manage it, but it's not really a thing. The way that he controls it seems like a skin changer relationship. We're told the Green Men rode great elks as well. So to see Cold Hands riding a great elk is suggestive of that. Plus, Cold Hands is entirely drawn from Herne the Hunter mythology. And Herne the Hunter is a version of the Green Man. You know, the real Green Man. So he's basically made of Green Man folklore and rides a great elk. So those are both skin changer clues. Then he also talks to the ravens. They spy for him, report back, fly away. And maybe Blood Raven is doing all of that, but I don't think so. I think Cold Hands still has access to his skin changer magic and can still control the ravens and talk to the ravens and control the elk, just like Varamir Sixskins rides on a bear that you normally couldn't ride on. So that's what I think is going on. And the other thing that's going on with Cold Hands is that he's been killed, and obviously he was cold whited. So he was probably whited by the others while his spirit was in his animal. And then somehow they must have repossessed his body and stuffed his spirit back in it. So it's still a cold white, but it's no longer animated by the others. This is probably what's going to happen with Jon. His body's going to be stolen by the others. Check out Lord Snow and the prince that was promised to the others. And his spirit will be in his wolf. So there'll be this bifurcation. But then eventually we're going to get his wolf Jon spirit out of the wolf and back into his body, which we're going to repossess from the others. I think that is what's going to happen. And it seems like that's what happened with Cold Hands. Cold Hands essentially is functioning as a precedent for Jon. So no, let me knock this down. Do you believe Gerold Dayne is who he claims to be? I'm sure he'll be revealed at Wins as yet another false identity. There are already over 17. No, they're not. There are definitely not 17 false identities. And most of the false identity theories are wrong, undoubtedly. If the story had as many false identities as people think, it would be a horrible story. It would be complete nonsense. Like, you can't tell a story like that. People are thinking about this too much as just that everybody's fake. That's my opinion, of course, but that's what I think about it. So I think Gerold Dayne is who he is. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some family history. We don't know who he's related to or why he is such an outcast. You know, maybe there's some incident that we don't know about, but I mean, who is he supposed to be? You know, most of the theories about him being secret somebody are because most people don't understand the Danes are from the Great Empire of the Dawn. So they see his silver hair and purple eyes and think he must be a Targaryen. I think that's why people think he's not who he is. But I'm curious to see if he's working with Doran Martell or, yeah, is David Lightbringer a false identity? Not really. It's actually who I am pretty much. But I'm definitely not secretly the child of Ned or Brandon and Ashar or something like that. Hey, come here. Desmond, I'm reading your question and trying to figure out. I might need to ask you to elaborate. Your name, you're mentioning all the different hands. There is a lot of hands. There's Order of the Green Hand, not the YouTube channel, but the Knights of the Green Hand in the Reach. The Red Hand that's the chief of the Burn Men is called a Red Hand. House sigils with hands, there's many. Could this point to a Marcher Lord precedent for the Watch? That's the part I don't understand. I'm not sure what we're talking about. What the connection to the why would the hands connect to the Watch, and what do the Marcher Lords have to do with it? Apologize, I'm probably just missing something. So Desmond, if you could elaborate, I will try to answer that, or try to leave me a comment and flesh out your idea. There's a limited how many characters you can use, guys, on these on the chat comments. So it is a little restrictive if you're trying to explain something more complex. However, you can elaborate in the comments of the video and explain. Oh, cold hands. Because, oh, right. Okay. Sorry. I felt like I was missing something obvious. Okay. Yeah, green hand. And he's got black hands, too. That's why I came up with the patron level Sacred Order of the Black Hand. I was thinking of like the black hands of the whites and stuff like that. But so the main thing about the Watch, here's what I'll say. The main thing about the Watch is they have a ton of dead green man symbolism. Oh, okay. Oh, I see what you're saying, Trinidad. Okay, I'll come back to your comment in a second. The Night's Watch have the symbolism of dead green men. Many of them have names taken from English folklore. There's like a John Barleycorn. Even Jon Snow is really Jack Frost. There's Harry Hal. There is Blackjack Bulwer. There's which is a Jack in the Green reference, only it's black because, again, dead green men. There's a whole bunch more. I forget. It's in the Sacred Order of Green Zombies 1, 2, and 3. But the point is, the original Night's Watch, the undead companions of the last hero, who I believe were raised as the first green zombies, and Cold Hands may well be one of them. They're either symbolic green men or they're actually green men. So, not sure which it is. And then, yeah, the Night's Watch, they're referred to as green boys, right? When they're before they take their vows. Exactly. That's enough. There's a lot of clues about the Night's Watch being ex-green men. It's just a question of how symbolic is it versus how literal is it. So back to the thing about the hidden identities. When you said 17, you're talking about like the fact that Cersei's kids have fake identities. Young Griff has a fake identity. So I'll follow you. Sir Barristan has a fake identity. So, okay, I see what you're saying. Not that you believe in 17 different theories of, okay, that makes a little more sense. I withdraw my outrage. So what is the theory with Gerold then? Tell me that. Trinidad. Tell me who is Gerold supposed to be? And I'll give you an opinion. Mance Rayder plays Bale the Bard. Yeah, okay. I follow you. So I'm going to go into some of the Undead Night's Watch stuff in the last Melisandre video. It's not going to be a complete update of the Green Zombies theory, but I am going to go into some of the Fire Whites symbolism with Barrack and the Burning Scarecrow Sentinels. And I had a couple more insights about that. So I am going to talk about the Fire White Night's Watch connection in that one. Where are we on time? Okay, we're doing pretty good. About an hour and a half in here. Let me go back over to my inbox. Okay, definitely got some more PayPals here. And let me go over to the doc. Do I have any missed super chats? Dylan Kane. Thanks, Dylan. Pink letter is Mance's skin that Ramsey made him write on. So I don't think the letter is skin. I think we would notice if it was, but it's definitely signed in blood. And I don't have a good beat on who wrote the letter. I think there's a couple of possibilities that make sense. So, and I forget what my opinion was when I looked at all the details real closely. And then a bunch of people disagreed with me. So I'm not sure who wrote that damn letter. I guess I'm just waiting to find out on that one. All I know is that I love Mance. And I think that, yes, this is the Nimble Doc. That's well named. Thank you, Carla Karsnack. I think Mance is one of the best characters. He's just only gotten more interesting as it goes on. And I really want him to continue to have an interesting role to play in the event. So that is the main thing I care about, is just don't, poor Mance, he's cold in the cage. Give him, oh, it's right, he has a blanket. The skins of the 6 wildlings. Blah, 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 blah. Anyways, it does seem like most of those wildlings got caught. I don't know if Mance is really a captive. He probably is a captive. It makes sense that he would be a captive, then he'll escape or something. But I just think he's going to do some cool shit still. So I love Mance. And I did I do a Mance character stream? Fuck, I don't remember if I did or not. I need to do one if I haven't. Let me announce this right now. I'm going to do a Visenya character stream very soon. I'm not sure about the exact date, but that's going to be my next character stream. I got to see how much of this Melisandre video I get done before next Sunday. See if I can put it out before then or not. But in the next 2 weeks, we'll say, definitely got a Visenya stream coming. So going back over to the PayPals, Parker's asking, do I think Theon will live? Yes, I love that Theon the latecomer theory. It's okay, girl. It's just a horn. Yeah, it's just a car horn. There's people outside. Want to go back up here? Okay. So the Theon the latecomer theory is that there's a precedent in Ironborn history of an Ironborn king who was not present at the King's Moot of Urathon Bad Brother, who was a Euron parallel. And Theon wasn't present at the King's Moot that picked Euron, and he should have been. So that historical precedent can be used to nullify Euron's kingship and appoint Theon as king, which I think will happen eventually towards the end of the story. And it'll be a little bit of a happy ending with Theon and Asha ruling together. I actually think it'll be similar to what the TV show did in that sense. Yeah, poor Theon's mother. That would be nice if she lived to see her baby boy again. That really would be sweet. Wouldn't count on it, though. Thanks again, Parker, by the way. Casey, Mr. E. Knight. Oh, Mr. E. Knight. Yeah. From the Curse of the Bleeding Stars video, I believe I heard you allude to the Narrow Sea having once upon a time not been a body of water, and that the Hammer of the Waters broke the arm of Dorne. It flooded. Okay, well, no. I wasn't saying that the entire Narrow Sea didn't exist. It seems like the Narrow Sea did exist, but only up to a point. Dorne had an inland sea, and so it's probably, let me pull up the map so we can just picture this. I love geography and maps, so this does not take much prodding to get me to talk about this. I will definitely need to zoom in. Okay. So you see where it says Sea of Dorne? The Sea of Dorne, the Maesters say, used to be an inland sea. So you can see that the Arm of Dorne must have also, not only did it connect from Dorne to the disputed lands, it must have also connected up to like the Rainwood, Cape Wrath, Estermont area. That little peninsula of where it says Rainwood. Okay. So basically the Narrow Sea would have just been an extension of the Shivering Sea, but it would have stopped somewhere around Tarth. See where it says Sea of Mirth next to Mere? That was probably always on the bay there. But the coastline was probably somewhere just south of Mere, the top of the disputed lands continent, across Tyrosh to kind of where Estamont is in Shipbreaker Bay. That's probably was all land there. And so the Narrow Sea would have just been an extension of the Shivering Sea. And so what I was saying was that global temperatures are governed not only by the ice caps and things like that, but by the ocean currents. And the Younger Dryas is a 1,200-year cold snap that happened about 11,000 years ago in the middle of a time of longer warming. The glacial maximum is like 19,000 BC. Then it starts warming for about 7,000 years. Then it snaps cold again for 1,200 years. There was a comet impact, it looks like. And then the impact was over the North American ice sheet, and so much meltwater leaked into the ocean that it stopped that Atlantic current, the one that keeps, Europe warm and not like Canada. And so we went into a deep freeze for like 1,200 years because of those disrupted currents. And yes, this is Graham Hancock, Randall Carlson talk. Although it's really, you should talk about Klube and Napier and a whole bunch of other people. But in any case, the point is the Narrow Sea would have been very cold. It would not have had the influence of the Summer Sea. It's basically a southern arm of the Shivering Sea. And this is still pretty far north. If you back up on the map here, which I will, you can see that King's Landing is parallel, not King's Landing, but let's say, let me zoom in a tiny bit. Yeah, so you see King's Landing and Dragonstone, they're on a level with like Norvos almost, and Norvos gets pretty cold. And just north of there, you see Lorath and Bravos. It gets real cold. And that's parallel with like the midpoint of Westeros. So yeah, the Narrow Sea would have been fairly cold, maybe a little warmer towards the south. But the Summer Sea is very warm. And so when the Arm of Dorne was broken, you basically had a much warmer sea and a cold sea meeting. And this would have changed all of the currents, or at least a lot of the currents, and that would have changed all the weather patterns. George is not, this is a fantasy story, so he's not trying to figure out exactly, well, if you broke this, it would make this place cold and this one warm. He's just showing us that like the land was changed, the currents were changed, the climate changed, et cetera, et cetera. It's sort of a general reality that's going on there. Cool. So, and then, there was an add-on to that question was, Let's see here. Oh man, I've got several come in that I hadn't seen. Wow. Okay. Could you explain the similar species or races spanning the two continents with evolutionary separation over the millennia that have passed since? Well, okay. So one wonders about the weirwoods. Okay, the weirwoods are all over Westeros. We've never found weirwoods in Essos, but maybe that's because that connection was broken, right? I don't know, but we do find the shade trees. We do find children of the forest over in Essos, the Ifakevron of the. Do I still have the map up? Yes. The Ifakevron are over here, the kingdom of the Ifakevron, that forest north of the Dothraki Sea. These are basically children of the forest living here, which is pretty far away. So the children of the forest imply that they're like 1 million years old. So they probably lived everywhere at one point. I think that's what George wants us to think about. I love maps. Anybody else have a map question? All right, let's get back to the PayPals here. Oh, I think I boiled tea water and then forgot about it. All right, well, let me just heat it back up again. Since you guys are keeping me going with lots of questions today. Appreciate that. Casey, Mr. E Knight again. Any possibility of the others? Our ancient empire of the Dawn emperors and kings? Well, kind of. Gemstone kings and queens magically enthralled somehow into an icy form. Dany's vision in the House of the Undying, seeing the wraith-like figures that almost certainly are the ancient gemstone royalties, sound like they could morph into the description of the others. So, yeah, I've got a couple ways I can answer this. What I will tell you is that there's two parts to make an other. Part of it is that they are dead green men ripped out of the weirwoods. I've said that 1,000,000 times. Azor Ahai invades the weirwoods with his holy fire and his dragon presence. Think of it as burning out the weirwoods. And that evicts the others. The thing is, the others were then made into, there's an additional step. You can't just drive a spirit out of a tree and it turns into another. That's like a disembodied spirit. What you then need is an icy body. I've called it a golem body. Okay. Now, when we think about Craster's giving his babies to the White Walkers, presumably so they can reproduce. Because it doesn't make sense. Again, White Walker daycare is silly. That's what the TV show implies. We see Night's King touch his little cold fingernail to the baby's face. The eyes turn blue. And now it's like, okay, we just wait, 18 years and we'll have a full-grown White Walker and we'll send him to White Walker daycare in the meantime. It doesn't make sense, right? So I think what's going on in the show is that the babies are being sacrificed. Again, tons of baby sacrifice, child sacrifice, dark magic in this story. You sacrifice the baby to get the magical mana to create the ice body. Then the disembodied other spirit has a home, has something as a body to go into, right? So think of the shadow babies, for example. The shadow babies were taking a seed from Stannis, so a little Stannis sperm, as well as his life fires, and turning it into a shadow. So it's not like the baby grows up. It's like a baby that's consumed to make the shadow being. So I think that is essentially what's going on with the others too. So, because we're told that Night's King and Night's Queen had children and they gave their children to the others, but that's kind of metaphorical. The point is that Night's Queen has a role too. So it's not just Azor Ahai invading the Weirwood net that creates the others. Night's Queen is spelled out as the mother of the others. And I've talked about that in too many videos to count, but the Blood of the Other series is where it starts. Origin of the Others, Night's Queen. That's the video that I want to recommend. So the sense in which the others are like the great empire of the Dawn emperors, to make a long story short, is that they are Azor Ahai's children. It says that Night's Queen took the seed and soul of Night's King, and then she made other children. So those others are the seed of Night's King. But if Night's King is Azor Ahai, as I have theorized, then that means that we took fiery blood of the dragon seed and we turned it cold. And that is, by the way, paralleled with Jon and Rhaegar and Lyanna, where a black armored dragon figure who shows us a Night's King Azor Ahai, that's Rhaegar, gives his seed to a Night's Queen figure, Lyanna of the Blue Winter Rose. And the child, Jon, basically is like a good other. That's why we see him armored in black ice in that dream. He's armored in ice just like the others. He's named Jon Snow, and the others are probably going to steal his body to try to invade Westeros. So Jon is a symbolic other, and he's born from a relationship that mirrors that Night's Queen parallel. Then we have, again, Stannis and Melisandre. Stannis is an obvious Azor Ahai Night's King parallel. He has a flaming sword and he's called Azor Ahai. But he takes the Night Fort as his seat and gives his seed and soul to a magical woman, a fire priestess instead of an ice priestess. And then instead of making the others, he makes shadow babies, which are black shadows, whereas the others are white shadows. So there's a lot of parallels that suggest Night's King and Queen are the father and mother of the others. Night's Queen is the one with a connection to the Weirwoods, I believe, because she may be Nissa Nissa. And Night's King would be the blood of the dragon. So the others are part blood of the dragon and part exiled Weirwood spirit. Hope I explained that coherently, but that is essentially what the symbolism suggests to me. And again, it's paralleled with Jon, so it kind of works. Yeah, I'm sorry. So Trinidad, you're telling me Viserys Targaryen was replaced? He wasn't really Viserys? What? Replaced by a Dragonstone decoy recruited by Sir Willem? What's the point of that? See, that's what I always ask with the hidden identity theories. What's the point? How does it make the story better? Viserys is already dead and gone. What's the point of him being fake? I don't get it. And what's the point of Dany not being a Targaryen? That doesn't make sense. Like, Dany is the most Targaryen of anybody in the story. Why would you undermine that? It doesn't really make sense. Kennedy. Let's see. What if cold hands is what happens to a white when a White Walker that is in control of them dies? So this is a show thing that whites are tied to a specific White Walker. I kind of doubt that's going to be the case in the books. It's a common fantasy trope that it seems like HBO just grabbed onto for convenience, for the sake of the White Hunt. They never went back to it. It was a one-time thing that they sort of made up that time. So I don't think that would happen. And I think the whites seem like they're permanent, like they're, because like think about the whites outside of the cave, Bloodraven's cave. Like they're just laying there for centuries or whoever until somebody walks up there. So I don't know. I don't tend to think that's the case. I think Cold Hands was saved somehow. I think it's more like what we saw where the Children of the Forest saved Benjen with a Dragonglass dagger. I don't know if Dragonglass will be the thing to do it, but I do believe that somehow probably Green Seers were able to save Cold Hands and free his whited body. Put it this way, if Jon's body gets stolen by the others, we're going to need a way to free it. So it's either going to be fire magic from Melisandre, or it's going to be Bran's green seer magic that does it. So we will see. And that will tell us about Cold Hands. Camden says, love the videos. Just got into it about a month ago. You may have covered this before, but I always thought the Boltons may be the descendants of a blood cult that has ties to the others, similar to Craster. Yeah, I can see that. Similar symbolism for sure. We all know the Northerners are known for their loyalty and rigid sense of honor, but the Boltons seem to be the odd one out. So a deal between the Boltons and the others at some point in the ancient past wouldn't seem out of character. Yeah, they have a very strong Night's King symbolism, both Roose and Ramsay, as well as evil Azor Ahai symbolism. And them being the rivals of the Starks kind of makes sense that maybe they were tied to the others like Craster. I tend to think the Boltons are serving a symbolic purpose, mostly. But I kind of would love for there to be an actual lore secret about the Boltons that comes out. And there is room to reveal it. The Boltons are, right in the middle of the story right now. There's a bunch of other northern houses that know about the history of them. So we could see some sort of Bolton secret history come out. I think that could be in keeping with the story and could make sense. So I judge that potentially realistic. Natasha with a thank you PayPal. Well, thank you. You're welcome. And happy to be of service. Here's one from Personal. Hey, LmL, how do you feel about the theory that Dunk has four living descendants in the main series and each acts as an heir to his legacy? Okay, let's see here. So who would they be? Brienne, obviously. Oh, the Clegane brothers. Yeah, they're huge. I don't know what the evidence is that they would be tied to Dunk, but I follow you. Brienne is obviously related to Dunk, and Hodor could definitely be. So you're saying, okay, so Brienne is the heir to Dunk's knightly virtues. Hodor is the spiritual heir, dedicating himself to serving and protecting a king, just as Dunk did for Egg. What about the Cleganes? Hodor will give his life and service to Bran, just as Dunk did for Aegon at Summerhall. Gregor is the antithesis of Dunk, so he could serve as an example of what Dunk could have been without his kind heart. Gregor is stronger than larger than most men, and he uses his size to bully people, unlike Dunk, who protects the weak. Sandor acts as a realistic heir of Dunk's legacy, a man who was once idealistic and wanted to be a true knight, but his ideals were destroyed when he saw what a monster like his brother could become. While it may not be proof, it's interesting to think about. So I'm with the Hodor and the Brienne part. That bit about Sandor is pretty interesting. I'm just not sure what the evidence is and how likely that theory is to work out. But they sure are big. Yeah, the Clegane backstory is pretty threadbare. We know they were just a landed knight in service to the Lannisters. And then but Dunk does have the whole Rohan Weber thing, and she became the Lady of Casterly Rock at a certain point. So yeah, maybe he did leave some Dunk seeds. Perhaps. Oh, I see a super chat. Let me grab that. Harangan Mind. Jaime has thought about coming up with a plan to winkle Tommen away from Cersei. What if he figures out how to fake Tommen's death? Well, it seems like all of those kids are going to die based on the prophecy of Maggie the Frog. What would be the precedent for faking Tommen's death? I'm not sure about that. I feel like Jaime's plot is going to be mostly away from Cersei until it intersects at the last minute for the climax. I think he's going to end up fighting in the north and stuff like that. So I'm not sure about that. I think Tommen's, I think they're all going to die. I think, just like the prophecy implies. Devoted to Mariah. Love the chat. Love the mods. Just wanted to share the love. Thanks, Devoted to Mariah. Certainly devoted to mythical astronomy. Appreciate that. And yes, thank you, mods. You guys are great. All of you are wonderful. Hardly any modding even needs to be done. It's mostly just a friendly little club. The Mod Club. What is the mythical astronomy reading of Lamy Greenhands? Oh, that's easy. So Garth Greenhand, obviously, is the parallel here. And Lamy was killed. He was wounded in the leg, so that's a Fisher King wound. And that makes sense because the Green Man represents the health of the land, just like the Fisher King. And when the Green Man dies is when it turns to fall. And then Lamy is buried. Isn't he buried beneath a tree? Or does he die with a back to a tree? Is that it? So basically, he's being sacrificed to a tree. That's the idea. Let me pull it up. I'll pull up the actual quote. Let's see. Yeah, it was bleeding with a spear thrust through his calf. Let's see here. They carried him around for a little while after that on a litter. So that's kind of like a green seer. So he loses his mobility like Bran. He's carried around on a litter like Doran Martell. That's another green seer character, Doran. And yeah. Lamy Greenhand said propped up between two thick roots at the foot of an oak. Oh, nice. A spear had taken him through his left calf during the fight at the Holdfast. By the end of the next day, he had to limp along one-legged with an arm around Gendry, and now he couldn't even do that. They'd hacked branches off trees to make a litter for him, but it was slow, hard work carrying him along, and he whimpered every time they jounced him. Let's see here. He's talking about catching crows and eating them. He wants leg potion, of course. Here it is. So he's been sitting under the oak this whole time. He tried to yield. His green hands are called out, and he says, something wrong with your leg, boy? It got hurt. Can you walk? No. You got to carry me? Think so. Lifted the spear, puts it through the boy's throat. He didn't have time to yield again. Let's see. Blood sprayed out in a dark fountain. I see. So his throat is cut, and the blood sprays out, just like when you do a ritual sacrifice of like an animal and you cut its throat. Usually the point is to have the blood go into a bowl or on the altar or something like that. So a very ritual sacrifice. He's lying with his back to the tree. His throat is cut. The blood splays out. So this is just a Garth sacrifice scene. It's very similar to Renly getting his throat cut in the middle of all his green armor in a green tent. And of course, Garth is associated with the oak tree. So that's another Garth call out. And a dark fountain, calling it a fountain suggests that people should drink the blood, right? So we've got that Ser Nuno's blood drinking ritual layer of symbolism added there. Yeah. There you go. So that's the Lamy question. Yeah, that Renly chapter that's one I might have to read pretty soon. Yeah, definitely going to read the Renly chapter. So thanks, guys. 250 people watching. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry I sometimes take a little break and have dead air time. Thanks so much for not running away instantly. Makes me feel like I've got a little bit of room to run this show here. Cleo, stop it. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, see, I don't know what you're talking about here. When I look at the illustrations of Gerold Dayne, I cannot help but see the fully grown son of Queen Rhaella and King Aerys crowned on Dragonstone at 8 years old. Yeah, like, that's not in the books. There's no clue that Gerold Dayne is a Targaryen who was crowned on Dragonstone at the age of 8. Like, that's fan fiction. That's not even a theory. That's just stuff that people made up. There's no clues about that. I mean, I don't know what to say about theories like that. And again, that's born out of somebody who didn't understand that the Danes get their Dragon Lord looks not from House Targaryen, but from the Great Empire of the Dawn. So we're not going to see any Danes that turn out to be sacred Targaryens. that would ruin the whole thing, the whole point. Because George has even said the Targaryens do not, the Danes don't have Targaryen blood. He said that specifically, and he referenced that like not everybody with purple eyes is a Targaryen. So yeah, I'm especially not into theories that go against things that George has said. Such as the secret science fiction theory that I always heap scorn on. George has said that it's fantasy, and it is obviously fantasy. And so we can rule out the idea that it's secret science fiction entirely with clean conscience. I think I might have to deal with that, by the way. I think I might have to do a no, it's not sci-fi stream. Like just to once and for all sort of just put this to bed and deal with it. Because people want to talk about it, apparently. It's a fantasy trope. A lot of authors have done it, but it's not what's happening in A Song of Ice and Fire. And I feel like indulging my argumentative side and making a video about it. So perhaps I shall. I feel equally scornful of the idea that the Andals were here during the Long Night. That's the other one that, like, I just want to get my hammer out and smash it until it's dead in 1,000 pieces. Oh, the discussion about the semantics of sci-fi is easy. George has clarified this. He said that stories are stories, and really there's no difference between any genre because it's always about characters and their hearts in conflict. And it doesn't matter really if they're in space or in a forest. However, the difference between fantasy and sci-fi is largely setting, okay, and plot elements. And so a sci-fi story is going to have computers and spaceships, and fantasy stories have swords and dragons. It's like literally what he fucking said. So it's a really simple conversation. It's like, yes, genres are different. Yes, some authors mix genres. And if you look at George's older sci-fi work, there is a lot of fantasy elements because I think he loves fantasy in a deep, deep way. But in A Song of Ice and Fire, there are not sci-fi elements. So, like, there's no computers, there's no spaceships. It's got all the standard deck chairs, if to use George's word, of fantasy. And then he refers to it as a fantasy series whenever he talks about it. So the other thing that confuses people is that he develops a lot of his ideas and characters in his older works, which are sci-fi, that he then uses in A Song of Ice and Fire. So there's like 5 or 6 different Lyanna Echo characters, and there's all kinds of precedent for A Song of Ice and Fire in his older works. And that has led some people to think that there's a literal connection, but that's just an author developing his ideas and themes and using the themes across different genres. That doesn't mean that A Song of Ice and Fire is actually sci-fi. It's just a misunderstanding of what's happening. And yeah, he wrote his sci-fi like fantasy because that's what the older sci-fi is like. The Jack Vance, etc. stuff from the 60s and 70s has a lot of fantasy. And sci-fi is always borrowed from fantasy. Like telekinesis, people often quote as a sci-fi trope, and it is a trope, but telekinesis is magic, and it doesn't have a scientific explanation. It's magical. So I feel like sci-fi loves to borrow from fantasy, and some of the best science fiction does so unambiguously. Like, of course, Star Wars is a classic mashup of fantasy and science fiction, and so is Dune, from which Star Wars borrowed heavily. Dune is mixing tropes and plot elements both from fantasy and science fiction. And look at Dune and compare it to A Song of Ice and Fire. You could see one series is half sci-fi and half science fiction. It has spaceships and it has magic. The other series only has magic. There's no spaceships. So, you know, it seems really simple to me. I don't even understand why there's any confusion about it. I just think some people love the idea of a fantasy world that came about after the destruction of our world, right? Shannara did that. Even if you look at the Thundar the Barbarian intro, that's what happened. They took our planet and they said, a rogue planet that looks like a red comet threw the world backwards into the age of swords and sorcery and super science. That's the thing, because Thundar is set in a post-apocalyptic world. They still have some computers and elements of technology. Again, A Song of Ice and Fire does not have that. There's nothing. It's straight up primitive first men and very old magic that have developed to a medieval society, essentially. Yeah, the red comet's not a spaceship. Unfortunately, you can't make a. Yeah, no. Maybe Lightbringer was a flamethrower. Yes, that's it. That's it. That's the other thing about the secret sci-fi theory is like, how do you expect that to pay off exactly? Are we going to be in Bloodraven's cave? We're going to turn the corner. It's a panel of controls with lights and dials. Like, is a red comet going to land? And the green men are actually aliens. They come out of the spaceship. I just don't. That's not going to happen. You know, I don't see how. I don't see how that works. Oh, thanks, Desmond. You said you're going to clarify the question later. I assume in the comments, but you're sending in a gratitude super chat. Thanks. You're quite welcome. Let's see here. And as always, when I knock down theories, I just want to make clear, sometimes I seem excited about it. It's all fun and games. We're talking about theories about a fictional universe. I have no animosity towards people that believe in N plus A equals J, or people that think the Andals were here, or that it's secret science fiction. I just think those theories are wrong, and I like to be entertainingly ranty about it, but like, it's all good. Of course, everyone should be nice to everyone. There's no you know, that's all. I just want to keep this in perspective. Like, I respect people that make theories that I disagree with. It's okay. The only animosity I have is for people that tried to cancel me 2.5 years ago. And if you guys are on Twitter, then you know who those people are. But apart from that, like, yeah, just please be respectful. I'm definitely encouraging an environment of respect. Even ideas that I like to pound with my hammer, like, it doesn't mean that anyone's bad or, you know, stupid or whatever it is. I could be wrong about half this shit. So whatever. It's all fun and games. I just always want to say that because, you know, sometimes people take it too far. And oh yeah, no, people tried to cancel me. Yeah, it was a whole thing a couple years ago. I didn't do it though, so it's okay. You don't have to worry about liking my channel or anything. It was really dumb. It's not even worth explaining. I don't really want to have it on my YouTube channel anyways, but No says, why does Elisand have parallels to Lyanna? Yeah, we talked about that in, if you didn't check out our Arion Martell Winds of Winter preview readings, those were really good. And it jumped out that Elisand, Lady Lance, as she's called, is a huge parallel to Lyanna. And when we talked about it and developed the idea, it brought me to the idea that what's going to happen is that Fagon and Elia may run off or have a tryst that will essentially screw up whatever plans Jon Con and other people have. Like, there may be a potential wedding alliance between Arianne and Fagon that gets ruined because Lady Lance gets in there. Like, it's been set up. She's kind of horny. She gets caught with an older guardsman. She's heedless and headlong, and she likes to joust. So it's just a whole bunch of Lyanna parallels and foreshadowings of her potentially getting involved with Fagon. So I think that's what's going to happen. Is you're gonna see Lady Lance and Fagon have some sort of tryst that's going to throw everything into chaos, just like Rhaegar and Lyanna did. And yeah, she outran Arianne on the horse. She won the race as if, oh, she got to the target first. Exactly. That was another foreshadowing. But check out those Arianne chapters. They were both really good. Yeah. She was kissing a guy named Feathers. True, yeah. What's the clue about that? Feathers. Did someone say horny? Yes, someone did. Indeed. No one's hornier than Robert Baratheon, yes. I have antler horns on my helm. And Cersei put horns on me when she lay with her brother. Passed off the children as mine. Disgraceful. Only found out after I died, in fact. Anyways. All right, well, I think I've gotten all your questions. I think I've taken them all, fended off all comers. And I'm looking at the doc. I got that pink letter one. So yeah, I've got all the super chats. Very good. You guys have been very generous today. Thank you so much for all of your questions. I guess I'll throw out a last call if anyone wants to try to slip in a last one here at the end. But yeah, we're 2 hours, 15 minutes. Thanks everybody for watching. 262 people. You guys flatter me. Click the like button. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the upcoming Visenya character stream or my new Melisandre videos or anything else I might do at the last second because I have ADHD. Make sure you're subscribed. Devoted to Mariah is not Quinn's alternate account, although Quinn is definitely devoted to Mariah Carey. Do the others have a secret plan? Well, yes, they kind of do. I've said many times that I think they were watching for Jon's birth. That's why George has put their eyes in the sky at the Tower of Joy scene that we get from Ned's dream. And I think that is because there is an ancient pact. The Starks stole a baby from the others, and the others want it back, and that is Jon. So check out the Lord Snow and the Promised to the Others videos, because I went way deep on that. I have a very specific theory about that. I think it's pretty strong. It's not moon meteor theory strong, but I think it's got a good chance of being somewhat true. Why does Tyrion have giant symbolism? That's a good question, Mbox. I don't know if I have an answer for that. I mean, it's obvious it works well on the plot level. Tyrion is a giant character. He influences things. But on a symbolic terms, I'm not sure. Like, we pointed out the giant symbolism with Peter as a Loki illusion, but I'm not sure what it would be for who were we just talking about? Shit. For Tyrion. I've figured out his monkey demon symbolism and his dragon symbolism, but the giant symbolism, I'm not sure. Does anybody have a guess? What's the deal with all the drowned fools? Well, Azor Ahai is a fool that drowns in the Green Sea. That's the short answer. The Azor Ahai figure is someone who reaches too high. He steals what isn't his. He pushes the boundaries too far. So that's a foolish. He charges foolish and headlong into the woods. Like Waymar. Think of Waymar in the prologue. He's foolhardy, yeah, and charging into the woods against all the better advice, and then that's how he meets the others. So the fool's drowned in the sea because Azor Ahai drowns in the sea, and he loses himself. He loses control. He gets more than he bargained for, loses his identity. All those kinds of things are happening. So Jinty's suggesting that Tyrion actually is probably another Loki character, a good guy trying to help, but after endless humiliation and betrayal turns evil. That actually kind of makes sense, doesn't it? I'll have to do a Loki study so I can get all that. Yeah. If he's using this much Odin symbolism, as I've highlighted, then it makes sense that there would be a bunch of Loki characters too. That kind of does make sense with Tyrion as a Loki figure coming back to plague the Lannisters and fight against people he formerly was allied with. Yeah, that kind of fits, doesn't it? Also, if you look at Loki's children are what? Jormungandr and Hel and who was the third one? And obviously Dany could be Jormungandr. Hel would either be Dany or Melisandre. And all these people might be on the same side. And Fenrir. That's right, Fenrir. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for coming out. And also Sleipnir. Yeah, Sleipnir. That's a weird one because Loki turned into a horse, a female horse, and then gave birth to Sleipnir. All right. Norse mythology is weird. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much. Been, again, very generous today. Appreciate that. And I will see you soon with the Melisandre video. I'm not sure if I'm going to stream on Wednesday or not this week. Like I said, please subscribe to my channel, and that way you'll always know when I do a live stream. I am trying to develop a regular schedule, but I'm kind of wondering if 3 streams a week might not be too much, sort of hard for people to keep up, too much content for people to keep up with. So I might look for 2 streams a week. Yeah. So in any case, I will see you soon. I'm going to get right back to work on the Melisandre video and maybe watch a little football tonight. So cheers, guys. Thanks for coming out. See you soon.